Good evening, or good day, and welcome to Truth Matters. Truth Matters, if you're wondering what this is about, what we are doing here now as you watch this video. Well, Truth Matters is a kind of a collaboration between our two churches, Emmanuel Church Lorraine and Reach Summerstrand, where on the first Wednesday of every month, we're going to be bringing out one of these videos where we then have a following time of discussion where we can speak into some of the concerns or some of the realities that we are finding ourselves as a society in today. And so it only makes sense that for our first Truth Matters that we start specifically speaking about the coronavirus, wanting to address the reality of corona and some of those myths. And so this afternoon I have with me Rob Freaks. Rob is a council member here at Emmanuel Church. Rob and I share a lot of similarities, the main most possibly being that we're both Eastern Cape boys, born and raised. And what I'm going to do is just ask Rob to introduce himself. Rob, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then we'll get straight into the thick of it.
Cool, yeah. I'm obviously been at Emmanuel for quite a few years now. Moved up to PE 9 years ago. And I work at Livingston Hospital. You might have seen it in the news lately. And I'm a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, also a physician, specialist physician. So we look after medicine and people admitted to hospital. That's my full-time job.
Yeah, great. And Rob, you have a family?
I'm married to Lisa, and we've got 3 beautiful children, 13, 11 and 9. Keeping us on our toes at home at the moment, quite a lot.
So that work from home dynamic, obviously Lisa is right in the
school at home.
School at home,
Sort of 50% schooling at the moment, keeping Lisa busy.
So as you mentioned, you work at Livingston and also mentioned, Livingston has been in the news a lot, but the main issue is just the tremendous pressure or reality that the coronavirus has brought on. And I know a number of us, we're living in a time where the lack of information is not a problem. In fact, the overload of information is most likely it. So, Matt, might be a good question to start with. Now that we're kind of 5 months into lockdown, into being aware of coronavirus, Rob, if just from your point of view, why would you say we should take corona seriously still, even though now where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, Andre, like, as you know, a lot of there's been a lot of hype about coronavirus and a lot of information out there. I think a lot of misinformation as well. You've got to be very careful at where you get your information from. I think we're all becoming increasingly familiar with fake news and the problems there. So we do need to take it seriously. I mean, this coronavirus is something we haven't seen before. As doctors, we haven't treated a condition like this. There's actually, apart from just supportive management, there isn't really much that we can do as doctors to actually treat this virus. There are 1 or 2 treatments that make a difference, but there's certainly no miraculous cure. But maybe just to recap, what the virus is. It's virus is actually a little short piece of genetic code that's wrapped in your own cell's membrane. So it doesn't have the machinery to sort of replicate itself. It needs a host. It's like a parasitic thing. Yeah. It needs to be in you, and then it uses your own cell's machinery to replicate it, to wrap it in a cell membrane, and then disperse it into the environment. And it doesn't lie dormant for for years in one place. It has to circulate and sort of go between different hosts, i.e. people. Yeah. So it's a respiratory virus, and I think we all know it came probably out of China, although they've actually found traces in sewage and things from around the world that it's probably been around for quite a lot longer than what we thought.
So the bat is not necessarily the...
It may come from there originally, but I know some interesting studies found traces of it in Europe already in the middle of last year, long before the sort of main epicenter outbreak. And we need to take it seriously because, not since donkey's years ago have we seen a sort of epidemic, pandemic infection like this that's obviously taking so many lives. And the main issue being that apart from the common cold coronavirus, this new strain coronavirus is something that there's no natural immunity to. So if you take influenza is also a nasty virus and also causes a significant mortality amongst people who are at risk. but there is a baseline level of influenza immunity in the community, that was never there for coronavirus. And it's going to take still quite a while before we get to the point of having what they call herd immunity, where enough people in the community have had it to be immune to it. And only when that happens does the actual level of circulating virus in the community come down significantly. And we're hoping we're sort of heading in that direction now in this country. As you've seen, there does seem to be a definite drop-off in the infection rate at the moment. But it's there, and it's going to be with us for a long time to come. I think it's going to be circulating probably for quite a few years, at least until there's either natural herd immunity or vaccine-induced passive immunity.
Yeah, that's helpful, Rob. That's great. A lot of those terms you've used, herd immunity, and obviously, the vaccine, and that we hear a lot of that from day to day. Like you said, a lot of fake news, and so the issue surrounding corona is often, what kind of news to believe, how cautious to be, and so forth. So, as a medical doctor, but also as a husband and as a father of young children, certainly. Just thinking of the concern specifically here in the Eastern Cape. How should we continue to live in the light of Corona, knowing, as you said, it's not going to be going away next week or next month anytime soon? What's some advice you might have in that light?
Yeah, I think, each of us has an innate desire to just be rid of this thing. We just want to say, okay, it's over and move on with our lives. But it's not that straightforward, really. And I think it's important for us to listen to expert advice. I believe that the experts in our country are doing a good job. The Ministerial Advisory Committee, and I think largely, the government, given their resource restrictions and things, have actually done quite a good job so far in containing this thing as best as we can. And I think the advice that's being given from a Ministerial of Health perspective is solid advice, and we should be taking it seriously. So we do need to continue with a degree of social distancing, as requested by our President and the Health Minister. And, the main thing is really, we can make a decision for ourselves, like, okay, if I get it, I get it. But at the end of the day, when we get it, we put other people at risk around us. And so we should be thinking of other people more than ourselves in this, inadvertently, you might, because you have it, you might pass it on to somebody who gives it to their frail granny, for instance, or other people who've got comorbidity and risks. So I do think we need to take it seriously. It's one of those things that's happening in our community, and we can't pretend that it's not here. Putting others first, really.
That's great, and that's a reality. That's a gospel reality, in fact, that we are called to. Jesus, when he was asked, to in a sense sum up the two greatest commandments, not that we follow Jesus legalistically by any means, but we are called as Christ-centered followers to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and as you say, love our neighbors as ourselves. And so, even though one might not be too concerned with the risks for yourself personally, we have to take that seriously, thinking through the risks of us passing that on to one another, and that's quite a real risk, you'd say. Once seeing that out there.
Yeah, look, this is a very infectious, contagious virus, and there's no question that the people who are close to you are at significant risk. There's lots of stories about people who just got it and they don't know where they got it from. In terms of close contacts are certainly a risk. One of the main things about wearing a mask is not to prevent you from getting infection, it's actually to prevent you from giving infection. And the epidemiological studies that have been done have shown that the true infection rate is likely to be at least 10 times what the diagnosed infection rate is. And that obviously depends on how good your country is at testing. So whatever the positive test rate is, then you can probably multiply it by 10, to get the true infection rate. And so the reason there's such a discrepancy is firstly, some people just don't go for testing, even though they've got symptoms. But secondly, and a big factor is that many people are minimally symptomatic or asymptomatic. And you can only diagnose that retrospectively when you actually later on do an antibody test on them and you see, oh, you've got antibodies. And the person never ever knew that they were sick. And so that's one of the things about wearing a mask. You can have it and be asymptomatic,
not even aware,
but your viral load can be very high. And often with viruses, the viral load is highest in the people who are not responding to it, because the whole reason you get a sore throat is because your body is now fighting a virus.
Yeah.
And when it fights, it causes inflammation, which causes pain.
Yeah.
But that reduces the viral load significantly. Okay. And you can actually have a significant viral load and be very contagious without any symptoms. The other thing about that is that the virus tends to cause you maximally infectious, probably starting about a day before you actually get symptoms. So in that 24 hours, you've got no symptoms, you're not meaning to spread it, but you are very contagious. And you touch your mouth, you touch a table, somebody else touches a table, they touch their mouth, then there's some very eloquent or elegant studies online you can Google to see how something can spread from the hands. We know that from healthcare, it's a big problem.
Some really helpful YouTube videos out there. I know that Janine, with the little ones at our little school, some very practical ways to show just how it's passed along. They use a bit of dye on their hands and that.
Exactly.
Within a few minutes, it's all over the classroom.
Right, everywhere. No, it's amazing.
So, Rob, again, as a working man, as a father and husband, I just think through the reality that I see expressed within our own church community, folk who are aware of the risks involved or behind the COVID virus, but are needing to go to work, needing to bring in income. Not so much, it's not so much science needed in that, but what would you say to folk who have to go out there and work within this kind of community and be aware of spreading and passing on the virus? How can we view that responsibly as such? Just any advice?
Well, I think, the government authorities have put very good guidelines together on how you can reduce the risk in the workplace. It's clear that the world has to turn. People have to go to work and the economy has to revive, and obviously government's been trying to strike this balance between livelihoods and lives. So clearly people have to go to work. There are some good guidance on what you can do at work to reduce your risk, and obviously stay at home if you can work from home, do all those things. And like from a personal perspective, every time I walk out the door I'm at risk. Could get hit by a bus, or have a car accident, or any number of other ways that we are exposed to risk. So I think one needs to strike a balance, a healthy balance. We can't be paralyzed by fear. Fortunately, we have a great hope in Christ. And for me personally, I get a lot of comfort from that. I know He's in control. I'm not going to put Him to the test. And go and touch everything in my mouth intentionally. But for people who are at lower risk, it is necessary to get out there and follow the advice given. For people who are at high risk, it's a personal decision. One has to weigh up your individual risk and put in place, I think, be responsible. That's protect yourself and others.
Great. It's great that you touched on that. For us to remember that the Lord is in control of all of this. A lot of again, looking at the media that's out there, a lot of folk will question why. Why the significant loss of life? Why is the world reacting in this way? There's a whole bunch of other questions that can be asked about the politics and the corruption and so forth. But what a great reminder it is to know that the Lord is in control of all of this, and that Corona or the COVID-19 virus is not out of His control. It's not something that has gone wrong. And that God is kind of looking in and saying, what can we do now? But He's using this time, no matter how tragic it might seem. He's in control and He's at work. And as you said, we have a hope that goes beyond that. Now, I'm very aware, just in the last few weeks and months, in our kind of pastoral meetings, and that we have met with a number of folk who are significantly concerned and worried to the point of anxiety that this virus and all the other challenges that it has brought on. And the great thing is knowing that we don't just have we don't have a Savior who we know is in control, but through what Jesus has done for us, through the way he's come to this earth, through the way he's suffered on our behalf, he can fully identify with each one of us when we are feeling that anxiety, feeling the weight of the uncertainty that's going on. So Rob, I just want to thank you today just for, I know now in the scope of this short video, we haven't really even got into the science, we've literally just scratched on the surface. And just by the way, you know, Rob mentioned the economic strains and realities and that. What we're going to be doing over the next few months is that, like I said, the first Wednesday of each month, we're going to be speaking into each one of these realities. And our next one, the first Wednesday in the month of October, we're going to have Sven Ruppelt, who's a financial analyst and economist, and we're going to be speaking just about that. So diarize that, look forward to that. But now, what we would like to ask of you, we're going to finish off this kind of format of discussion, and we're going to move on to a Zoom meeting where you can raise some comments. We're going to ask you to do that in the form of commenting in the comments section of Zoom. If you have any questions for Rob from a medical perspective, he'll speak into that. And we really just want to use this as a time to build up our understanding as a church or as churches and as a community. And if you have any questions, anything you want to kind of to put your mind at ease, now would be the time to do that. If you are watching this video and it's past the time that we have this Zoom meeting, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see you comment in the comment section, or to get hold of any one of us at Emmanuel Church Lorraine or Reach Summerstrand. Our contact details will be on the video afterwards as well as in the comments. And we'd love to just make that contact. If you are feeling overwhelmed or anxious or concerned by the very reality of what is going on, please do speak to one of us. Thank you for joining us, Rob. Thank you. We look forward to the Zoom discussion to follow shortly. Yeah, just want to thank you just for your input.
Thanks, Andre.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.